Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's the Laces Out podcast, which is our NFL podcast. Been a little bit light on the old guests recently, but not this week. No, we have a guest. Guest season-long predictions and guest predictions coming in hot. Before we get started, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Drop in a reviews you want to drop, and if you know somebody who enjoys the NFL, send them this podcast. They might enjoy this just as much. Right, let's get started. Here we go. This is CookieCast, Laces Out.
Recording in progress.
Indeed it is. Paul, take it away.
Well, thank you very much, Andrew. Yes, welcome along, ladies and gentlemen, to your weekly instalment of news from around the National Football League. For those of you joining us on the YouTube, you will notice a third member is in the slot for the first time in what feels like 10 seasons, something like that. It's been slow sledding for the first couple of weeks of the season. But yes, welcome along our guest for this week, Mr. James Forrester Gray. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, man. How are you?
Very, very well, very well. The NFL season is just wild,
low scoring,
shall we say? Unpredictable. I mean, we should have known that we were up for some crazy shenanigans when we saw what was going on in the off season with all the trades and the free agency moves and things like that, and then it's just continued where the off season left off, really, hasn't it? So
We could always talk about, undefeated teams. Teams that are 5-1, that's an interesting category.
4-2's a bit. They've got some character as well.
It's just the weirdest play.
It's all just a whole mess of nonsense and intrigue. Is probably the best way to put it. We'll get to that though. We'll get to how things went down last week. But before we get to that, we'll start with something we've not been able to do for the last couple of weeks. As we said, we've not had a guest proper for a number of weeks now. So as it is James's first time on the podcast this season, I will ask him what he believes the Super Bowl matchup at the end of the season may indeed be.
I mean, the obvious one is Jets versus Giants, clearly.
Of course.
Based on current form.
It's the Super Bowl everyone wants to see.
Of course it is. Yeah.
It's the Super Bowl that New York would be pulling for. And it'll be interesting to see if that did in fact become the Super Bowl, if they just said, balls to it, we'll just have it in MetLife Stadium.
I mean, they might as well at this point. But
Exactly.
It's as close as Arizona are going to get to the Super Bowl for a few years. So, yeah, this year they might as well have that there. Probably the obvious one, but I'm thinking Bills and toss-up between... Yeah, and actually, I think Bills-Eagles. I know it seems like the obvious one, but with 6 weeks in, they do look like the two strongest teams.
So, for those of you who have not tuned into the podcast in the first couple of weeks of the season, so far, we have asked 5 people to give their end-of-season Super Bowl prediction, and 5 out of 5 have said the AFC representative will be the Buffalo Bills.
I personally love it because it's when everyone's like, I think it's the Bills, and then there's just that pause, and then
yes, because Andrew, the NFC
the
is basically a dumpster fire,
and then the team that will be losing to the Bills this season.
Because no one knows what's going on with the NFC. Like James just said there, you've got the Eagles that are actually half decent, and outside of that, the Giants are okay, but they're not going to get to the Super Bowl. So the Cowboys are, let's be honest, the Dallas Cowboys, so they'll find a way to cowboy that shit right up.
I wonder if there's like a positional change that they could make that would really ruin their chances of ever seeing a playoff game, let alone a Super Bowl.
Now, Andrew, we'll get to this.
Anyone?
We'll get to that in a moment's time. But just hold that. So, just to clarify, James's pick was the Bills versus the Eagles. So, like I said, all five of us have picked the Bills so far. I went with the Rams, which is now looking like an incredibly terrible pick. The Rams are awful.
Unless they get Christian McCaffrey.
Unless they trade for Christian McCaffrey, which is a very real possibility at this point, as I believe the Panthers have been shopping him round. So, we'll see. The other three people have gone for Bills Buccaneers.
On a Sunday where you're listening to the commentary and somebody gets like picked off and they use the phrase "he'd like that one back." That's how I feel about my Super Bowl pick.
Oh yeah, because I'm just sat here with looking real pretty with Bills Rams on the docket.
It's a long season.
Anyway, James, of a Bills Eagles Super Bowl, who do you have to win? Said you.
I mean, Bills and Super Bowls, bit of a funny sort of mixture, aren't they? But so you know what? Chuck me down for the Eagles. Be the contrarian pick.
So
this is amazing. I love this pick. This is just brilliant.
Strangely enough, if the Bills do get to the Super Bowl and it is against the Philadelphia Eagles and they lose, not only will they have lost 5 Super Bowls, they'll have lost Super Bowls against every single member of the NFC East.
I mean, the headlines write
which
themselves.
Is absolutely incredible if it comes off. And if the Philadelphia Eagles do indeed win the Super Bowl, who would be your MVP pick?
Ooh. It's going to have to be Jalen Hurts, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
I don't know. They seem a rounded team. They're like there's not that superstar single player, is there?
No, I was going to say. I mean, it's weird because obviously he's not exactly famous for his arm. He's more of a mobile quarterback, but he's obviously getting it done with both phases of the ball. Really. So
he's certainly improved a lot, hasn't he, with the throwing?
Yeah. Massively. So he's definitely pushed himself into the question as is he an elite level quarterback? And obviously, if he leads his team to a Super Bowl, then he's answered part of that question at the very least.
Well, in fairness, last time Nick Foles took them to a Super Bowl.
I mean that's true. Yeah, good point.
With Wentz for the first half of the season.
Yeah. But again, with Wentz, that was strange because obviously he was on like an MVP level sort of tear, and then his knee just imploded, basically. So that's your Super Bowl pick. Outside of the Super Bowl pick, who is your choice for who you think might be the regular season MVP for the league?
Ooh, that's a trickier one. I should have had a think about this one. Yeah, most of your biggie QBs aren't exactly blowing people away. Let's see, who do you reckon? Saquon's been amazing. It's probably just going to be Josh Allen, though, isn't it? Because he's the only QB that's just tearing things up.
So, strangely enough, out of 5 picks, that is the first person to pick Josh Allen. Now, the reason I didn't pick Josh Allen is because I have him to be the Super Bowl MVP. And I believe the old curse of a regular season MVP never having gone on to lift the Lombardi Trophy. I didn't want to jinx my boy, so that's why I went for Patrick Mahomes as my choice for the regular season MVP. Obviously, he was doing fairly well, and then obviously came up against the juggernaut that is the Bills against this weekend. Obviously, no spoilers for the results that we'll get to in a moment. But so there was 2 picks, myself and Rob. We've gone for Patrick Mahomes. Obviously, you just picked Josh Allen. Andy went for Aaron Rodgers to 3-peat. It's not looking great at the minute.
Not looking great at the minute.
At the minute, yeah, I was going to say that can change.
But hey, at least he didn't lose to the.
We'll get on to that. And Stu's pick was for Justin Herbert, who probably needs to step it up a gear to get in the mix, shall we say?
It needs that big game like that. What's his name? Burrow had last week. It needs that sort of
needs needs a 3 or 4 touchdown, 350 at least yard game, sort of to put himself back amongst the big names. Well, thank you very much. So that is your regular season MVP, NFL season long picks. So we will move to week 6's picks from the podcast side of things. So last week, unfortunately, our guest was unable to join us at the last moment. So everyone's favourite side bet picker, Miss Amy Brinton, stepped into the breach and gave us some delightful picks across the board. So myself, Andy, and Amy in the guest slot had 14 games to choose from. Incredibly, in a 3-way tie with 7 out of 14 picks correct, there is no winner, but also technically no loser in this week's predictions. Some really, really strange one person picking a team where the other 2 people picked against that team kind of swayed it this week. Obviously, I had a good start by picking the Commanders to beat the Bears. Amy got her first point on the board with the Patriots beating the Browns. Mr. Cook didn't get a pick correct until the 5th game where he had the Colts beating the Jaguars. So yeah, all that basically meant that, like I say, 50-50, 7 correct, 7 incorrect across the board for each one of us. 7 points on the board. Like I said before, can't really split a third of a point because it's starting to get messy on the points. So I've just given every person a half a point, which means that for the overall scores for the season, the guest has 1.5 points. Mr. Cook has moved himself on to 2 points. I'm still in the lead with 3.5 points through 6 weeks. That just leaves us with the small matter of the side bet that me and Andy have got going on for the remainder of the season. So after week 5, Andy had managed to get 10 out of 20 picks correct. I had managed to get 14 out of 20 picks correct. So Andrew rolled the dice and moved straight into week 6 with the Chargers to beat the Broncos. That's a big point right there. Followed it up by picking the Vikings to beat the Dolphins. 2 for 2. He also had the Ravens to beat the No. The Ravens did not beat the Giants, ladies and gentlemen. Unfortunately, that is a big loss in the column for Mr. Cook. It's all right, though, because he salvaged it at the end with the absolute nailed-on Buccaneers to beat the Steelers. Oh, dear. So, for those of you counting along at home, that is 2 correct, 2 incorrect for Mr. Cook, moving him on to 12 points out of a possible 24. A lovely 50 average. 50% average.
Amazing.
Lovely.
Amazing.
I started off the week hot with the Los Angeles Rams to beat the Carolina Panthers. It's as safe as houses pick that, ladies and gentlemen, across the board. I followed it up with the Cincinnati Bengals to take care of business against the New Orleans Saints. 2 for 2. Listen, everyone knows, in Wisconsin, it's cheese country. The Packers don't lose at home to the Jets, do they? Aaron Rodgers clearly hates me. He also, after the last 2 weeks, he clearly also hates New York.
And rookies, apparently.
And rookie quarterbacks, or just rookies in general. Was it Kayvon Thibodeau that was was involved in it. Oh no, that was against the Ravens. Sorry, that he was involved in the strip sack that won the game for the Giants. My final pick was the San Francisco 49ers to beat the Atlanta Falcons. Annoyingly, the week before, I had picked the Panthers to beat the 49ers because, and I quote, the 49ers do this. They beat the teams that they're supposed to lose against, and they'll lose against teams that on paper are absolutely terrible. I was correct. I was just a week out. So I'm taking it as a moral victory, but sadly, for the side bet, I can't do that. So, it is 2 points for myself, 2 points for Mr. Cook. No real change. He moves to 12 out of 24. I move to 16 out of 24. We will go again in week 7. But before we get to week 7, we have some stats about week 6 to round up. I believe Mr. Cook.
Yes, as I was saying to these two gentlemen, what's nice is the stats split down completely evenly this week. Nobody gets the bigger share. When we get a guest on, we do like to get that guest to earn their keep by, reading words. So Mr. JFG has some stats for you as well as Mr. Williams, and I will kick things off with the NFL Week 6 2022. Credit to Nate Davis of USA Today, but let's face it, the real credit goes to the Stats Mistress, who put these together at 5:45 this evening. Number 1, the Bills quarterback Josh Allen, who passed for 329 yards and 3 touchdowns on Sunday in their 24-20 win over the Kansas City Chiefs, including the game winner to tight end Dawson Knox with 64 seconds to go, solidified his early standing in the MVP race on a day where Chiefs counterpart Patrick Mahomes threw a pair of picks, including a comeback killer on Kansas City's final possession. I'd just like to take the opportunity to thank Game Pass for blacking out that game after it had aired.
Oh, I was going to say they don't really have a choice with the ones that are picked for Sky broadcast in the UK.
So we sat down with tea in hand, ready to dive into some delicious football. Sorry, this game is blacked out. Well, at least it's not like £150 a year. Number 2, the Cincinnati Bengals and star quarterback Burrow, 300 passing yards and 3 touchdowns, including a game-winning 60-yarder, outlasted Dalton, their former quarterback, 1, and the New Orleans Saints 30-26. Number 3, the Philadelphia Eagles are still the league's lone unbeaten squad following a Sunday night's win over the Dallas Cowboys. Rush's clunker of a game, 3 interceptions for Dallas on Sunday night, his first professional loss as a starter. I kind of wanted to go back and look at who the Eagles have played up till this point and try and pick out the really good team that they should have lost to and didn't.
Tell you what, hold that thought.
So, whilst I give you a fourth stat, since rookie quarterback Bailey Zapp took the field in Week 4, replacing quarterback 2 Brian Hoyer, the Patriots have scored 88 points, including Sunday's 38-15 blowout in Cleveland. Prior to Zapp's ascendance, New England had managed just 53 points. Don't hurry back, Mac. I've heard all sorts of stuff this week about the Patriots. It's all going New England. I believe it's over to you, Mr. Williams.
Okay, I will dive into the stats once we have gone through the Eagles' 6 games. They opened the season away in Detroit, where I believe the game was settled by 3 points, maybe. It was closer than a lot of people thought it was going to be, but you wouldn't class the Lions as an elite team.
Not in the slightest.
In week 2, they were on the MNF against the Minnesota Vikings. Vikings are all right, but at the end of the day, they're quarterbacked by Kirk Cousins, so definitely not an elite team then.
But
5-1. That was their only loss so far.
I was just about to say, I would definitely expect them to put the Eagles to the sword.
So on another podcast that is available on other sites that is not the cookiecast.com, but then again, why you're listening to other podcasts? Let's be honest. They asked the question of what would Kirk Cousins have to do to win the MVP, and I believe the answer was given was be the only player playing in the NFL.
It's a bit
Either that,
harsh.
or basically he has to throw like 100 touchdowns in the season or something like that. He'd have to put up astronomical numbers to ever be in with a chance of it. And yeah, that's probably not wrong, to be fair. In week 3, the Eagles took on the Washington Commanders. Next. In week 4, they had the Jags, which on paper was potentially a bit of a tricky one, because at that point the Jags had a little bit of something going.
Yeah.
Week 5, they played the Cardinals. Shall we move on?
Moving
James?
on.
We probably should, yes.
And then obviously this week just gone, they had their toughest game of the season against the Cowboys, and kind of made the Cowboys look very ordinary, to be honest with you. So
Not super elite opponents, but not all
No.
overs by any means.
no, absolutely not. So diving back into the stats. Speaking of rookie quarterbacks, the Pittsburgh Steelers' Kenny Pickett notched his first NFL win by helping to orchestrate an upset of Tom Brady and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. However, it was a pricey triumph for Pickett, who suffered a concussion in the third quarter. Give Steelers vet Mitchell Trubisky some credit too, after he completed 9 of his 12 passes for 144 yards and a touchdown in relief of Pickett. It was easily the best performance in a Steelers uniform for Trubisky, who was benched 2 weeks ago. Did anyone see the New York Jets, who are now 4-2, beating the staggering Green Bay Packers? Green Bay lost consecutive regular season games for the first time since Matt LaFleur became the head coach in 2019. A little bit of a ridiculous stat. The Jets and Giants, 4-2 and 5-1 respectively, have now equalled or exceeded last year's win total. Both clubs were 4-13 in 2021. The G-Men upset the Baltimore Ravens on Sunday. And finally for me, oh no, we've just mentioned Mr. Kirk Cousins, so we're going to have to talk about his Vikings, unfortunately. How about some love for the Vikes defense? I can get on board with that. He's got nothing to do with the defense, so I'm all about giving the Vikes defense some love. How about some love for the Vikes defense, which produced 6 sacks and 3 turnovers in Sunday's 24-16 win over the Miami Dolphins? When you've got those kind of big plays, you can live with surrendering 458 yards. That's some huge numbers, and yet they still only conceded 16 points. That's pretty outrageous. That's it for me. Moving on to James.
All right, so back to the quarterbacks or carousel. So memorable Sunday for Colts QB Matt Ryan. It finally established a franchise record with 42 completions, and his final throw was a 32-yard touchdown with just 17 seconds to go, giving them the win over the Jacksonville Jaguars with 34 points to 27. His old team jumped into them. The Atlanta Falcons stunned the San Francisco 49ers 28-14 and stunned the rest of us by having a share of the NFC South lead in mid-October. I'm not sure many of us would have picked that at the start of the year. think first pick sort of territory was what we were expecting. Oh, speaking of teams that are probably living up to expectations, Washington Commanders QB Carson Wentz improved to 7-0 on Thursday night games after an ugly 12-7 defeat of the almost equally inept Chicago Bears. Unfortunately for Wentz, he fractured his finger on the passing hand and could miss up to 6 weeks. Poor chap. And in their first game without fired coach Matt Rule, the Carolina Panthers, sitting currently on 1-5, didn't score an offensive touchdown in Sunday's 24-10 loss to the Rams. They were forced to empty their employ their fourth-string quarterback, Jacob Eason, not a name I have ever had on my radar, and generated all of 8 first downs and sent one of their better players, Robbie Anderson, to an early shower, followed by a trade to the Cardinals. I think that's kind of where you go now if you're particularly naughty. It's like the NFL naughty step.
I thought it was the Bucks that was the NFL naughty step.
That trade, a bit of a strange one for me, because obviously the Cardinals are getting D-Hop back this week.
It's looking like Hollywood's out for 6 weeks plus.
I see.
But still, yeah, we got Rondell's playing well. I don't know. Bit of depth. I can't see him actually making much impact.
I saw a thing that was saying that he requested a trade in the tunnel after being ejected from the game.
I remember just seeing on Red Zone that you could see that during the game he was chirping away. So something definitely didn't look as if it was right. So it wouldn't surprise me if he'd sort of asked for a move whilst the game was going on.
I should have just taken his shirt off and stormed off. Seems to be the way of doing things.
Start doing some star jumps through the air.
Exactly. The only way to resign now.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen. Was that the last of your stats there, Sir James?
It was indeed, yep. All done with
There
my
we are,
stats.
ladies and gentlemen. Your stats for week 6. Done and dusted. All that's left to do is for us to move on to week 7. But before we do that, we are just going to take a small break to recompose ourselves until we can be in the optimal location for making selections in week 7. But don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back.
Recording in progress.
She isn't wrong, and we are back, but obviously to you guys, we never truly left. So, we've done week 6, we've wrapped it up with a neat little bow on top. We come to week 7's games, and we open week 7 with, please God, some excitement on Thursday Night Football. Please. It's been, the last 2 weeks have been absolutely awful. So can we at least get something from the Saints travelling to the desert to take on Mr. Forrester Gray's Arizona Cardinals? Myself and Andy have both placed our picks for this one. James, how do you see this one going?
Well, we've got a new kicker, so that might help. The bespectacled legend himself, Rodrigo Blankenship, just signed today. I know.
Ooh.
So
Now,
we should
is
be able
that
to put
because...
all of 6 points on offense.
Now, is that because Prater's injured, or have they just decided just to get rid?
No, Prater's been injured, so we've had Amendola the last couple
Oh.
of weeks. Not been great.
I do apologise. So is that the second team that Amendola's been dropped by this season?
Could be, yeah.
Was he on the Chiefs at some point earlier in the season?
That rings a bell. But
So new kicker in town. Will it provide some much needed spark for the offense?
probably not. But I think we can squeak it out against the Saints at home.
So you're going for the Cardinals.
Yeah. Although apparently the last couple of weeks there have been more away fans than there have home fans at the Arrowhead. Not Arrowhead, I'm sorry, at the stadium. So.
The State Farm.
State Farm, that's your chat.
State Farm. So we're going Cardinals.
Yes, Homer pick, but
Do you know what? It may be the Homer pick, but it's also the pick of the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. It's a clean sweep across the board. All three of us have gone for the Cardinals to get the win over the Saints. Obviously, none of us are thinking that Taysom Hill's got it in him to have another 4-touchdown kind of game. Even though, as an owner of him in fantasy, that would be spectacular. But anyway, we move on. The next game sees the Cleveland Browns taking on the former Cleveland Browns in the Baltimore Ravens.
Indeed.
Myself and Andy have made our picks for all these, so it's just down to you, James.
I will just go straight to the Ravens on that one. Get right game.
Yep. You'll be shocked to hear, ladies and gentlemen, that it is another across-the-board pick. We have also picked the Ravens to get the win in this game. Next up, we have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers against the Carolina Panthers. Dare I suggest this may be another get-right game?
Well, I don't think I can go for the Panthers, because it's got to be the Buccaneers at this point.
I think we've found the answer to the who is the worst team in the NFL in season 2022-2023.
Just wait till they sell all their good players as well.
Sadly, it is not the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Panthers, I think we may have... This was probably said in a group chat, but I think we said the Panthers do not look good, and at this point, they're nowhere near a Super Bowl, so they might as well trade away anything that's decent. They're only going to be holding Christian McCaffrey back for the next 4 or 5 years. Trade him, get his wages off the sort of the salary cap,
Precisely,
and just rebuild. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him go within the next couple of weeks. Next up, we have the Atlanta Falcons against the Cincinnati Bengals.
I think this one's a wee bit closer, but probably still going to go for Bengals on that one.
Yep, 4 games in. 4 picks exactly the same. They're probably closer than you'd think. The Falcons, as was mentioned in the stats, top of the NFC South.
Mm-hmm.
Not a position a lot of people thought they'd be in. But Marcus Mariota, dare I say, is actually a functional quarterback.
He's quite competent, isn't he?
Me and
Who
Liam,
would have thought this phenomenon?
yeah, me and Liam were talking about this at the weekend. We were saying he looks and plays completely different to how he played previously. And like you just said, he looks actually competent. You know, you remember when he burst onto the scene and was like, "Oh my God, who's this guy?" and then just went off the boil.
Well, obviously he came into the league as a second overall pick, and it was the fact that he was drafted second behind another Heisman Trophy winning quarterback.
Yeah.
So you had 2 Heisman winners in the same draft, which was quite unheard of, really. That they went 1 and 2 overall.
Yeah.
And his first couple of years with the Titans weren't terrible, but
no.
I think was it a case of he got benched in the end because of injury rather than talent?
He kept having lots of niggling little injuries, didn't he? They kept him off the field.
And I can't remember if it was just a case of he got injured and Tannehill came in and just did well, so they just decided to stick with him and obviously got to the playoffs and almost got to the Super Bowl, which was ridiculous. But
Indeed, it was.
Anyway, we move on to the Detroit Lions travelling to Jerry World to take on the Dallas Cowboys.
Dak should be back by all accounts. I reckon that's going to be a good high-scoring game. It's going to be like fantasy goal with that one. But, Cowboys are playing well. The defence is keeping them in it, even when the offence isn't quite ticking along. So, Cowboys.
Yep. Did anybody see the Tony Romo prediction for the Bills-Chiefs game?
Yeah, the guy is clearly from the future and just coming back and just... It's Tony Romo's world and we're just living in it, so we say. But yeah, absolutely crazy. For those who hadn't seen it, if you search for it on Twitter, you will be able to find, in the first quarter of the game, a clip of Tony Romo saying, "Yeah, I don't think this is going to be an all-out scoring game, blah, 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 blah. It's going to be the sort of game that finishes 24-20, which was the exact score that it finished to the Bills. Yeah, crazy. The guy's an absolute genius, let's be honest. Next up, we have the New York Giants taking on the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I mean, you'd be mad to bet against a 5-1 team, wouldn't you? So let's go Giants. Ride this out.
I swear, I honestly thought we were getting the swerve there. I was like, you have to be crazy to pick against the Giants.
So put me
And
down
I'm
for the
pretty like a
Giants.
fox, motherfucker.
No, I'm just not that creative.
He has picked the Giants, and again, ladies and gentlemen, we have a consensus pick across the board. We have yet to have any differences of opinions. Next up, inter-conference game where the Indianapolis Colts will take on the Tennessee Titans.
Ooh, so this one is tricky. Colts seem to be picking it up last week. Titans, bit up and down. I think this is a complete coin toss, this one. Taylor's back. Let's go Colts.
It's taken 7 games, but we have our first difference of opinion. Both myself and Andy have given the Titans the home field advantage on this one, whereas obviously James has gone for the Colts. So, move on to Landover, Maryland, where we have the Washington Commanders at home to a pissed off Aaron Rodgers and the Green Bay Packers.
He does have a habit of next week, like, really going off, doesn't he? Although, so two home games in a row he's lost. So, oh no, Commanders are just all over the place. So Packers.
Yeah, no shocks there. We've all gone for the Packers on that one. Like you say, obviously, technically the Packers had lost back-to-back home games. Obviously, the first one was in London, so you'd maybe give them a little bit of leeway on that one. But, I mean, the stats of the stats, obviously, is technically goes down as a home game, so you still have to count it. Next up, we have everyone's surprise pick of the season, the New York Jets, travelling to Denver to take on the Riding Broncos.
Yes, I think all food poisoning from whatever Russ is cooking on those ones. So Jets for me, which is not something I thought I'd be saying at the start of this season.
Nope, don't think they did. I think even if you go back to the first episode of this podcast, I believe the words that fell out of Mr. Cook's mouth were, so in the picks, when we just do the pick'ems or the side bet picks, it'll be like, so which team's playing the Jets this week? And I'll just have those little bad boys.
Yeah, and I absolutely stand by what I said at that point in time, because we were talking about the Jets.
I kind of see what you mean there, because technically we were talking about the Joe Flacco Jets, and let's be honest, the Joe Flacco Jets were pretty horrific.
Yeah, they're a different beast, aren't they?
Defense is decent.
We'll move on, ladies and gentlemen, to the Houston Texans taking on the Las Vegas Raiders.
So still got Devontae somehow dodging, like going to jail for beating a man up. So we'll take the Raiders on that one.
Yeah, again, we have all picked the Raiders on that one. We have the Seattle Seahawks taking on the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, apart from last week, Hawks seemed to be doing, obviously they won, but they didn't look great. Now let's go Chargers on that one.
It's another consensus one. Everyone's all in on the Chargers. But like
Very
you said,
ready to be
Seahawks are
wrong on
actually decent. Geno Smith, again, another guy who is looking like a functional, like operational quarterback. So
yeah, I mean, bad last week, but I think that there was just an absolute car crash of a game. So
yeah, it wasn't. It didn't look like a great game. Obviously, not an awful lot of eyes were on that game, as a lot of people were probably focusing more on events that were taking place in Kansas City. But yeah, not one for the purists, shall we say?
no.
So 3 games left. A repeat of the Super Bowl from 2020, where we have the Kansas City Chiefs taking on the San Francisco 49ers.
As you said earlier, Niners seem to win those games they're not meant to, but you know what? Stick us down for the Niners.
Interesting.
Just a bit of controversy.
They are at home.
So that should be at least 3 torn ACLs for the Chiefs.
Watch back next week, ladies and gentlemen. Let's see. Yes, myself and Andy have both gone for the Chiefs on this one. I think that's only because does Patrick Mahomes lose 2 games in a row? It probably doesn't happen that often.
Just being contrarian at this point.
Well, no harm in that. No harm in that at all. we move on to the Sunday night football in the first of our 2 primetime games. So, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers taking on the Miami Dolphins.
Are there any QBs left on these 2 teams? Actually, no, Tua should be back, shouldn't he?
I think Tua's at the point where he will clear.
I saw a press conference saying
protocol?
that Tua should be returning.
Right, let's go the Dolphins then. I don't think Steelers can pull that off twice, or pull the big sort of exciting win off twice in a row.
So you and Andy have both gone for the Dolphins here. I've gone for the Steelers just because something's not right with the Dolphins at the minute. I know that 2 is out, but one like I was going to say one player don't make a team, but when it's the quarterback, it kind of does. And obviously the ad was Teddy Bridgewater. Did he start the game on Sunday?
No, it was Skylar something.
So it was the 3rd string quarterback.
Yeah.
Did he get pulled because of injury then?
Oh.
Because I'm sure I saw Teddy at some point.
Could have just come on for relief and change of pace sort of stuff.
I was convinced that Teddy was there for more than a couple of snaps. So
Would have been.
The only reason I've picked the Steelers here is because I've got more sort of confidence that the quarterback's a more settled role for them. So that's the only reason I've picked the Steelers, to be honest with you. We finish up with a Monday Night Football fiesta, and I don't know how this has been allowed to happen, but for the 2nd week in a row, one of the teams that was in the Thursday Night Football the week before has managed to get basically a mini bye and get the Monday night game, as we've got the Bears taking on the New England Patriots. Why do the Bears keep getting put in prime time slots? Who is there? Someone in the NFL who just he's a closet wrestling fan or something? He's just trying to drive people towards Monday Night Raw or something like that. They just keep putting terrible games on in the same slot.
They just seem to anyway. Patriots. Yeah, defense is not going to let the Bears do very much at all.
I know there was that stat.
They seem to be getting it together.
There was a stat that we actually gave on the podcast a couple of weeks ago, which was that I think was it Cooper Kupp had the same number of receptions as Justin Fields had completions.
Dear.
So it just goes to prove that he's just not confident airing the ball out. He's much more confident running the ball, and let's be honest, in this league, unless you're Lamar Jackson, you are not going to get away with that. So, yeah, no surprises. We've all picked the Patriots in this one. So, that is the week 14. Week 14, that's wishful thinking. Week 7. It's because there's 14 games, that's why I've got 14 on the brain. That is the week 7 picks done across the board. So, all that's left to do is for myself and Mr. Cook to pick our 4 absolute bankers each for this week. Obviously, because Mr. Cook is still behind, we will allow him the choice to either go first or to defer and make me pick first.
So, I don't like this week. This week has too many games that you look at and you go, that's an absolute banker. Or is it? And there's too much of a... But with my first pick for week 7, I'm going to roll the dice and say, not 3 weeks on the bounce. The Green Bay Packers will defeat the Washington Commanders. Probably going to have to regret that.
It's not a horrendous pick, is it? Let's be brutally honest.
Isn't it?
It's one of the more safe picks of the side bet, in theory. Right, my 2. I mean, How you've left this? How you've left this just dangling out there for me to snap up, Mr. Cook? You should feel ashamed of yourself. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
That's the other game I'm looking at.
To beat the floundering Panthers.
Yeah.
I mean, is it too easy to say the Panthers lose every game between now and the end of the season? My second selection. I'll go for the Raiders to beat the Texans.
Nice pick. Now I know this. I know this team has been a little, never count them out and all of that. But I am going to say that the New York Giants, with their incredible form at the moment, are going to defeat the Jacksonville Jaguars.
I like it. I was going to pick the Giants and then saw that the Jags are at home, so I think that might just give a little bit of needle to that game, a little bit of edge. I still think the Giants will win, but yeah. Your third pick.
Maybe a weird one, because I'm going to pick against the team that I would always say never count them out. But the Baltimore Ravens to defeat the Cleveland Browns.
So, I did look at that one. The Ravens are at home. The only reason I didn't pick it is because these two teams legitimately hate each other. So, you're never going to get a nice sort of comfortable game on either side of that one. So it's one of those games where literally anything can happen. It's the old classic derby game, form book goes out the window, players will be trying to hurt each other. If it was the Steelers playing it, obviously Miles Garrett would be trying to brain someone with their own helmet and stuff like that. So right, so just my two and then Andy's final pick to go. I will have... Oh, it's not a lot, is it? I'll go for the Cowboys to beat the Lions.
Do you know something? That was the first game I was going to pick, right up until the point that I went, Dak's supposed to return, isn't he? So,
in a kind of weird way.
I'm good, thanks.
Obviously, Cooper Rush was doing really, really well, and Jerry's been very sort of vocal in his sort of accounts that no, Dak's still the starter. When he's fit, he'll come back in, and in a kind of weird way, them losing was kind of good for Jerry Jones in a sort of weird way, but I don't know. So I have one more game to pick. I don't like it, but I'm going to go for the Titans at home to the Colts.
Well,
the rest are all just a bit... Ugh.
If you don't like that one, I'm going to like this one even less, because I feel going with the Los Angeles Chargers to beat a Russell Wilson-less Seattle Seahawks somehow feels wrong to say it, but from a points perspective, I do think it's going to be up there.
So, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the side bet picks for this week. Andy has the Green Bay Packers to beat the Washington Commanders, New York Giants to beat the Jacksonville Jaguars, the Baltimore Ravens to beat the Cleveland Browns, and the Los Angeles Chargers to beat the Seattle Seahawks. I have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to beat the Panthers, the Las Vegas Raiders to beat the Houston Texans, the Dallas Cowboys to beat the Detroit Lions, and the Tennessee Titans to beat the Indianapolis Colts. That, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to the end of Week 6 roundup, Week 7 preview on the NFL Cookie Cast Laces Out podcast. Just want to thank Mr. James Forrester Gray for joining us in this weekly sojourn through the National Football League. Is there
Thank
anything
you very
else you'd
much
like
for
to add, Mr. Forrester Gray?
Not for tonight, but thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. Thank you
Have
for
we
coming on.
got you back on this season? Are you on another time this season?
I forget what the list said, if I'm honest with you.
I forget what the list said. I should have looked. I didn't.
Not to worry. If I come on again, I shall be delighted to.
Oh, week 11.
Oh, crunch time.
So we will see you then, and we'll have the opportunity to ask you whether you're standing by your Super Bowl picks and things like that.
We shall see.
There we go. That's week 6 done. Week 7 to come. Obviously, next week we'll be previewing a little trip to Wembley, which, not gonna lie, I've got mixed feelings, but we'll cover that next week. I'm sure by then we'll have a much better picture of what that game is going to look like.
Now, is that game another 2:30 kickoff, or are they keeping that one at 6?
No, I think it's at least 2:30, if not 1:30.
Oh, are we at the clock change?
I think the clock change kicks in.
Ooh. Interesting.
Maybe.
Oh no, that might be. Oh, hang on, no, we'll have to work it out. It might be. I can't do it. I can't do it in my head. It might be that it's actually 2:30 here, but it's just an hour different in the States. We'll have to get someone on who's more intelligent than me to actually work that one out.
There's always a couple of weeks where the early games start at 5, isn't there?
Yeah.
1:30 is listed as kickoff.
Fair enough.
30th of October kickoff.
Enjoy it. It's a good day out.
Yeah, it'll be a
It's
day.
alright, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Well, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen.
There we go.
As we said, thank you very much to Mr. James there for joining us this week. And for you lovely people, we'll be back in around about 7 days. So, until then, tatty bye.
So there you go, what do you think to that? Another one done. Another week of games gone. Another week of games to come. Another week of games to look forward to. Big thank you to this week's guest, the friendliest giant in town. Big thank you to you for listening and or watching. If I can just bother you for one last minute before we go, please do consider like, share, subscribe and comment. Drop in a review if you want to drop. Check out our website, it's thecookiecast.com. There we've got social media links and an email button. And just share the podcast around. Share it around, people. That's it for this one. Till next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then.
Thank you for listening to CookieCast. Please make sure to like, share and subscribe.